but me, your man, Louie Tee. Welcome to my continued coverage of the 2017 NFL Scouting Combine, the final day of the Combine. Thank God. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. But this one ended with a bang. I was actually really excited and looking forward to the final day of the Combine. Like I told you, I thought the defensive back positions of corner and safety would be the deepest in this draft, and these guys did not disappoint from start to finish. It was an exciting day, and as you know, that last day you kind of just want to get to the end and get it over with, but these guys made it that much more enjoyable just because we got to see athletes of the highest caliber on full display at the Combine in the final day of the on-the-field drill. So we'll jump into the defensive backs, safeties, and corners here in a second. But first, before we do any of that, I want to welcome you to the program. Of course, I'm your man, Louie Tee. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and subscribe to all my social media platforms. Subscribe to me on Louie Tee Network on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at In the Lab Room. Also, make sure that you follow me and like the page on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. On Instagram as well, it's ITZ, me, Louie Tee, on Instagram. So what I'd like to see them do moving forward with this defensive back group is split them into corners and safeties. I think if you can do that, we can have all the corners go at once, all the safeties follow up there, or you could do it vice versa. Have the safeties go first, finish up with the cornerbacks, and let that just be it. I don't like the whole notion of corners and safeties intermingling with one another, because sometimes the safeties don't get the just due that they deserve because they're being mixed in with corners who look way more athletic and easy going, more fluid in the positional drills than that of a safety. You can tell the difference between the two. I'd like to see the peer groups go with one another. Look, I know that this guy's a corner and this guy's a safety, and there should be a noticeable difference between the two. But I don't want to see that differentiation between the two. I want to see guys who are going to be playing the same position. I want contemporaries going with one another. It's sometimes a disservice to the safeties to have a guy come out, blaze it, look good, and then you follow up with a 4.59 40, and this guy just ran a 4.41. And it's not fair to that guy because he's a safety. He's not going to run as fast as that corner, or at least he's not supposed to. But in this particular draft, sometimes those lines get blurred, and these safeties, man, I tell you what, this is an athletic group of not only corners but safeties as well. Let's jump into the first group of these defensive backs. And this was a good group, but the second group to me was the much more polished, a little more ball skill and more athletic than the first group. But don't sell this first group short. There's a lot of names in here that you need to know if you're going to follow this 2017 NFL draft very closely. And so let's jump into this thing. We start with one of the premier names at the safety position in this draft, Jamal Adams out of LSU. This is a 6 foot, 214-pound safety, and I thought he would run fast. I'm not going to lie to you, 4.56 40. He was disappointed with that time. I was disappointed with that time, but I think he's one of those guys going to go to his pro day, and we're going to hear that he ran a 4.48 at his pro day, and all will be forgotten, and we'll move on. Look, this doesn't change anything about who this guy is. I thought he looked great in the field drills. Thought he caught the football well enough. I think he did nothing to hurt his stock. He's still a top 10 player in this draft and will be off the board before we get to the 11th pick in this draft. I can all but assure you that he's too good of a football player. And at a position like safety where you need big-time impact players, Jamal Adams is one of those guys, and I think he kind of solidified that for a lot of people. Again, I think he needs to clean up that 40. If he wants to be a legit, no doubt about it, top 10 player, if he can clean that 40 up at his pro day, make that, say, a 4.49, a 4.5 flat, I think people will take that, run with it, and make him a top 10 pick, even if he weren't to clean it up. Let's say he runs a 4.53 at his pro day. He's still a top 10 pick in my mind, okay? At the safety position, these kinds of players don't come along very often, and when you get a chance to take one, I think you have to jump on that opportunity, and I think Jamal Adams is one of those types of guys. You go to the next guy that I want to talk about, Utah's Brian Allen. Here's a guy, and this is a theme of the day, and this is a theme for this particular draft. You're talking about a guy that's 6'3", 215 pounds, Arms, 34-inch arms, converted from wide receiver to cornerback in 2014. He reminds me a lot of a guy that last year was similar. Wasn't a corner, was a safety, but similar stature, similar journey to becoming a secondary member, and that is T.J. Green, who was drafted in the second round by the Indianapolis Colts. Here's a guy, long, big, physical, 6'3", 215, 4'4", 840. This is the type of draft that it's going to be, and these are the types of physical specimens that are in it. And this is why we were so floored by the athleticism displayed in day number 4 of the combine. This is just amazing. I thought he moved well all day long, really helped himself. And we saw T.J. Green shoot up draft boards because of his size and the rawness. Because again, you're talking about a guy that has only played corner for 2 years. There's a little bit of a raw ability there that teams think, okay, this guy's still raw. There's some untapped potential here. And he's long, he's fast, he's got everything we're looking for. And again, we're not talking about a safety here. T.J. Green was a safety. This is a corner in a league where there are big receivers scattered and littered all over the field that can run. Here's a guy that you can put in front of one of those guys potentially and ask him to run with them step for step down the field and even jump with them if need be. I thought Brian Allen helped himself just by running the way that he did on the field with that size and length at 6'3", 215, 34-inch arms, running a 4'4", 840 out of Utah. Chidobe Awuzie, out of Colorado, is a guy that Mike Mayock's been talking about quite a bit. 6 feet, 202 pounds, cornerback that he likes in the slot. He says he's a tough guy, can make plays on the football, and I think he's a guy that helped himself because I didn't know much about Awuzie going into this process, but from all indications, he's tough, he tackles, he's physical, he's got some quick twitch in him. And to go out, a lot of people questioned his speed. That was the only thing that they needed to see. They needed him to check off that box because the tape is clean. I haven't watched him, so I can't attest to that. But 4'4", 340 is plenty of speed, whether you're out wide, and a lot of people, and look, at 6 foot, 202 pounds, why can't this guy go outside? If he's as good as everyone says he is, Mike Mayock says, look, this guy's good enough to play outside. I'd like him more in the slot, but he can play outside as well. Awuzie helped himself big time with that 40 time, and I thought he moved well all day long as well. Didn't catch it as well. A lot of these guys did not catch the football well in this first group. We'll talk about that as we continue on, but I thought Awuzie helped himself with his speed, and that 4.43 is going to go a long way towards helping him climb up draft boards. He helped himself on day 4 of the combine. Budda Baker, Washington safety. He's a nickel guy. You can bring down, drop him over the slot. And with that kind of speed, 4.45, I'd say he checked off that box as well. Now, again, he's going to get dinged for his size. He's a 5'9" and about 3/4 guy. So I'll just go ahead and say he's a 5'10" safety at about $195. So he's not the biggest guy in the world. But look, I'll tell you this until my face turns blue. For every guy like him, I can look at a guy that has played in this league and gotten it done at a very high level, that was in Seattle at one point, then went to Philadelphia, and even played for the Giants for a year. And I'll tell you that there are guys that can get it done in this league as a smaller stature guy. You can play him at safety. You can play him over the slot. They can run. And as I saw it said with Budda Baker, 4.45 40 is the type of speed you're looking for from a guy that can get it done at the next level. And I think he's got the movement skills. I thought he caught the football okay. He dropped the ball a lot. Mike Mayock says that's one of the big knocks on him as well, in addition to his size, is that he doesn't have great hands. And I saw a little bit of that. I didn't think he caught the ball all that well, but it wasn't as bad as I was expecting because of Mike Mayock telling me that he didn't catch it well. But he did not catch it that well in this day of the combine. But it doesn't matter. This guy can run. He can cover. And I think he helped himself with that speed. I think a lot of people thought he was going to run fast, but they didn't know how fast. He ran 4.45 fast, and that is plenty at the next level. You go to cornerback now and go to Ohio State, and they had 2 guys in here that were going to make some noise that people were going to be paying attention to. And one of my favorites is Garyon Conley. Ran a 4.44, Moses Malone 4.44 40, and 6 feet, 195 pounds. Mike Mayock says that he doesn't tackle well, and I'll make sure when I'm watching the tape on him, when I'm really zooming in on him, just off of first blush, I just love his corner skills. I love his ability to locate football, make a play on it. I thought that they would go after him a lot when Eli Apple was there. And, that's when I was first introduced to him. When Eli Apple was there and I'm watching the tape, they would go after Garyon Conley to stay away from Apple. And all he did was make plays. And so I've always been a Garyon Conley fan. To see him go out and move the way that he did, I thought he was very impressive during the combine. I thought he ran well, and that 4.44 40 is going to help him immensely. He's got some size, and at 195, I think he's one of those guys that can step in and help, just like Eli Apple did. Year one, step in, help your ball club, and he played at a big-time program against big-time elite talent. I like Garyon Conley a lot, and I want to see if he is willing to tackle because, again, I like my corners to be a little physical. You don't have to be the most physical guy in the world, but you do have to give some type of effort. And I'll check on that. But as far as on the field is concerned, Garyon Conley looked the part of a big time NFL corner and a first round corner at that. And we'll see if look. Everyone can't make it into the first round. That's the beauty of this draft. You're gonna get value in the second, the third, possibly as deep as the fourth or fifth round in this draft at the cornerback and safety positions because there's so much quality. Everyone can't come off the board in the first round. Everyone can't come off the board in the second round. You're still going to get guys that in other past years' drafts would have come off the board in the second round, in the first round, but because of how deep this draft is, they're coming off the board in the third or the fourth round. So he might be one of those guys that in a year of a lesser cornerback market and quality at the cornerback position in that year's draft might have been a first round pick, no question. This guy could easily slip into the second round and you could find yourself getting some great value. But I still expect a guy like Garyon Conley to come off the board relatively quickly, probably in the first round still. Cornerback out of West Virginia, Rasul Douglas, a big, long guy, 6'2", 209 pounds, 8 INTs caught my eye last year for West Virginia, and Mike Mayock said he had another chance to catch another 2. So you're talking about a guy that is around the football and knows what to do with it. So 4.6 flat 40, not the fastest guy in the world, but sometimes I told you, and I tell you this every year, sometimes we make too much of these 40 times because, again, Richard Sherman, go back and find what his 40 time was. Go back and find what Josh Norman's 40 time was. Go and look at some of these guys that are some of the premier corners in the league. Antonio Brown at the wide receiver position. Go back and look at what his 40 time was. Sometimes we make a big deal out of nothing when you're talking about 40 time. It's not always about how fast the guy is, but how good he is and how he uses his measurables and his skill set. And if this Rasul Douglas cat can locate the football, can figure out what his strengths and weaknesses are, minimize the weaknesses, highlight his strengths, he might be one of these guys that in 4 or 5 years we're looking at the next Richard Sherman or we're looking at the next Josh Norman, a guy that is a long cover 3 corner that can run and make plays on the football with his eyes on the quarterback and go get the ball. So I think he's worth noting because a guy that gets 8 interceptions in 1 year, that's a ton of production. Remember, we were talking about a corner last year coming out of Clemson that had no interceptions. And this guy had 8 in one campaign. So, and we're talking about a guy that had no interceptions for his entire collegiate career. So, and again, sometimes guys don't get thrown at as much. It doesn't matter. You got to get lucky and have one tipped to you at least throughout your collegiate career. This guy got 8 last year. So Rasul Douglas is a guy that I thought was worth mentioning. He's a little tight-hipped. He's not going to be as athletic as you can see by the 40 time as some of these other guys that were running around out there today. But it doesn't matter. This guy is still worth taking a look at that size, 6'2", 209 pounds. You're talking about a big, long corner that has some ball skills. So I thought that was worth mentioning. And like I said, he was a little tight-hipped, wasn't as fluid as some of these other guys out there. But again, it just put this guy in the right positions to make plays, and he may be able to do exactly that for you. Got to know what these guys are about and what they can do. And if he fits what you're trying to do, then maybe Rasul Douglas can help your football team down the line. Marlon Humphrey out of Alabama ran a 4.41, 6 feet, 197 pounds. They were talking about him, the knock on him not locating the football. I haven't watched a lot of tape on him, but I did watch a lot of Alabama football. So I do know that he's a guy that sometimes does struggle to locate the football. We saw that at the end of the national championship game. Mike Williams just kept going up and getting the football, and he had no idea where the ball was in a number of those instances. So he is a guy that will lose sight of the football, won't look back and locate. And, I have a problem with that. So that's one of my pet peeves. But, again, I can't really elaborate on that because I haven't watched him. So I don't know. I haven't watched him closely enough to be able to say he does or doesn't. I can tell you this. He was a little tight out there on the football field, moving around out in space. He was not as fluid as a guy that ran a 4.41. But, again, sometimes straight line speed doesn't translate to being able to move with fluidity. So, look, he can run. He played at Alabama. There's a lot of things going in the favor of a Marlon Humphrey, but he has to make sure that he does the little things correctly. We'll see what he does moving forward. But I thought it was a really solid day for him. He didn't do anything wrong. That time is extraordinary at 4.41. That's going to definitely help him. His size is of 6 feet, 197. That's going to help him. There's a lot of these guys you don't really know. You look on tape, you can't really tell how big a guy is sometimes on tape. So these measurements are just as big sometimes as what they do on the field. Because if a guy shows up and you think that, okay, this guy's 6 feet, he shows up and he's 5'10", and in a quarter, you're like, whoa, this guy's a lot shorter. That's 2 inches. That's big in this league nowadays with these big receivers. So for him to check in at 6 feet, 200 pounds essentially, and run a 4.41, Marlon Humphreys did himself some justice there. You look at the cornerback out of USC, a guy that to me is polarizing in this draft, Adoree Jackson, 5'10", 186, a 10.2 broad jump, 36-inch vert. At 5'10", 186, I'll sign up for that any day of the week. This guy ran a 4.42 in the 40. Highly athletic, great ball skills, ex-receiver. This guy can do, just like a Jabril Peppers in this draft, he's so versatile, can do so many things. Like Peppers, you can put him back there on punts or kickoffs, and this guy could probably help you in that department right away day one. Much like Peppers, this guy has offensive and defensive prowess and chops and can help you on both sides of the football if you decide to do so. And much like Peppers, this guy is very raw in the position that he's playing. Last year, Peppers played linebacker. That's something that was foreign to him. In Adoree Jackson, he's just started playing the cornerback position. This is a guy that, for the most part, was a receiver growing up. So he's still got a lot that he's learning about the position, yet he's so talented. He's so athletic. He's so fluid. You saw all of those things at the combine. Ball skills were on 1,000. This guy can catch the football with the best of them. And again, as an ex-receiver, I expect that. That is an expectation that I put on you if you're an ex-receiver to catch the football as a defensive back. He checked out there. So I really loved what I saw from Adoree Jackson. And I wasn't an Adoree Jackson fan coming in because when I watched him during big games, he was beaten by some of the faster receivers. But a point was made to me. Hey, those guys are world-class athletes, okay? Last year, we made a big stink about Adoree Jackson getting beat by a guy that ended up being a first-round pick in Will Fuller, the fourth, out of Notre Dame. Will Fuller ran like a 4.3 240, okay? Yeah, he got beat by a guy that's running a 4.3 240, and then you turn around and we see John Ross smoke him a couple of times last year in their big matchup in the Pac-12, and you see what John Ross did at a 4.2 240, set the combine record. So he's getting beat by guys with world-class speed. So other than those guys, no one is really taking Adoree Jackson out to the back and gave him some. So I feel like this is a guy that can play at the next level. And he's got some work to do because he's so raw. But if he's taught correctly, he could be a premier corner for a long time in this league. And I'm intrigued by Adoree Jackson. I think somebody's going to get themselves a phenomenal football player day one when he steps on to the field. You look at Malik Hooker, who wasn't able to participate, another big name at the safety position, just had a couple of surgeries. He's got a herniated disc, rotator cuff. There are some questions there about his medical. And the biggest probably red flag for him right now is that he can't work out before the draft. So you really don't know what you're getting. And it's easy to just go off the tape and say, okay, well, I see what I'm getting. But then you don't know if he's going to be the same guy or not when he comes back from these injuries. Again, a herniated disc, nothing to scoff at. But I think when it's all said and done, teams are going to trust their eyes and their evaluation. And it's 1 year production. It's not like this guy's done this for the last 3 years. So that's another thing to consider. But when it's all said and done, much like I talked about with Jamal Adams, these types of prospects at the safety position don't come around very often. And if you get a chance to take one, you gotta pull the trigger. And I think he's going to go off the board relatively quickly, despite being injured and probably not being able to even help a team early on in the 2017 NFL season. I think someone's still going to take a 6'1", 206-pound safety with the range that they're comparing to Ed Reed, which I don't know if I'd want to do that right now, but he's got that kind of range that people are really salivating over. So we'll see what happens with Malik Hooker. Safety out of NC State, Josh Jones ran a 4.41, 6 feet, 220 pounds, 11-foot broad jump, 37.5-inch vert. I mean, these guys are just insane athletes. I mean, we're talking about a 6'1" guy that's 220 pounds, yet he runs a 4.4 140. That doesn't even make any sense, okay? And we haven't even gotten to the biggest freak of them all. We'll do that a little bit later on when we get to the second group. But Josh Jones is a freak in his own right at 6 feet, 220 pounds, running a sub 4.45. I mean, the guy almost ran a 4.4 flat. Are you kidding me? And I thought he moved well as well on the day. And so another one of these guys that I just look at and I say, oh, man, this is a big, good-looking athlete here. And another one of these guys that I think just by going out and running the way that he did and testing the way that he did, jumping and all of those explosive traits that he showed, he helped himself in day 4, the final day of the Combine. Cornerback out of Washington, Sidney Jones is another guy that you look at, one of the top prospects in this draft. 4.47 40 for Sidney Jones, which is a great time for him because a lot of people thought he's going to come out and run about a 4.5, 4.53 or something in that range. And to run a sub 4.5 in general was big for him. He 6 feet, 186 pounds. I looked at Sidney Jones and I said, he doesn't move as fluidly as some of these other guys. And Mike Mayock made a point to say, look, man, you got to know what you're getting here. Much like I talked about earlier with some of these guys that don't move as well. And I think I made that point with Rasul Douglas out of West Virginia. Like, some of these guys aren't going to move as fluidly as some of these other players because that's just not how they're wired. It's just not how they're put together. And I think if you look at Sidney Jones, he's not one of those guys that's going to move extremely fast, much like Marcus Peters. Remember, Marcus Peters wasn't a burner. I think he ran like a 4.52 at his combine. He wasn't a burner, but he's the type of guy that can find the football and make a play on the ball, has a knack for being where he needs to be when he needs to be there. And I think Sidney Jones is another one of those types of guys. Didn't wow me with his movement skills necessarily, but if you put him in the right system and you give him opportunities, I think he can play both press, I think he can play off, I think he can locate the football, and those are the kind of traits that I'm looking for at the cornerback position. So I thought that just running the 4.47 alone by itself helped Sidney Jones, and I thought he went out and I thought he caught the ball okay. I thought he would catch it better because I look at him as one of these guys with good ball skills in this draft. I thought he would catch it a little bit better, but like I said, as a group, I thought that the first group of defensive backs struggled to catch the football as a whole. So he didn't blow me away catching the football. Safety out of the U, Rayshawn Jenkins, 4.5 140 at 6'1", 214 pounds. I'm going to tell you guys, he looked good, okay? I thought he moved well all day long. I looked at him, and what I wrote down in my notes, this is a big, thick, physically imposing looking athlete, all right? And Mike Mayock made it a point of emphasis to say, look, this guy will hit you. He's physical, and he looks the part. I mean, his thighs look like tree trunks. This guy was moving out there, though. Like I just told you, 4.51 for a guy that's 6'1", 214, and he looks the part of a physical. He just looks like a guy that will be a Los Angeles Ram. Okay, a guy that will come and hit you and be physical over the middle of the football field. He looks the part of a legit NFL safety. And I thought he actually caught the football well. One of the few guys in this group that I was impressed with his ball skills. And he had 9 career interceptions at Miami. So this is a guy that can catch the football, but in the same breath will dislodge you and separate you from the football as well. Really walked away impressed from Rayshawn Jenkins. Can't wait to watch the tape on him to see if what I saw in the field at the Combine matches the tape at the U. Speaking of guys catching the football, to me, the guy that impressed me the most with his hands, especially in the first group where the ball hit the ground quite a bit, was San Diego State's corner, DeMonte Casey. he caught the football extremely well. I think he might have had one drop the entire day. I was fixated on his ability to catch the football, and part of the reason is because he had 7 INTs last year. So you tell me that this guy can catch. You tell me he's got 7 INTs. I need to see that. Well, I saw that. Okay, this guy was plucking the football out of the air. A couple of drills where he had to go up and get it. He went up and got it, snatched it out of the air. Nothing hit the ground for the most part throughout the course of the day from Damontae Kazee. And, Mike Mayock said, look, man, ignore the 40 time with this guy. He's a football player. He ran a 4.54 40, which is not bad. At 5'10", 184, he's quicker than fast, a guy that's probably going to make his living in the slot. And if he can find ways to make plays on the football like he did at the Combine, then sign me up for it every day of the week. I wrote down in my notes tremendous ball skills, and I think that's the biggest takeaway that I had from Damontae Kazee. 7 INTs in his career. I saw the ball skills. I'm impressed with what he put forth in day number 4 of the Combine. Cornerback out of Central Florida, Shaquille Griffin, might have been the biggest winner of this first group just because, A, I didn't know anything about him, and B, I don't think anyone thought he was going to run as fast as he did. And what you saw from him all day long, and I put this in my notes, was explosive and twitchiness with ball skills. I thought he was another guy that caught the football extremely well. 11-foot broad jump, 38.5-inch vertical. So that explosion right there lends itself to the 4.38 40 that he ran on the day. One of the fastest times of the final day of the Combine. Definitely the fastest of this first group. He was outstanding throughout the day. I thought he ran well. I thought he tested well. I thought he moved well. I thought he caught it well. I just walked away very impressed with Shaquille Griffin. And that's one of those Combines at 6 feet, 194 pounds. He's one of those guys that now, because of how well he ran, how well he tested, how good and fluid he looked in the drills, you got to go back now if you're an evaluator and you didn't do your homework on this kid. You got to go back now and put the tape on because he walked away from this Combine a big winner, and I was impressed with him. And another one of those guys that I put a star by in my notes is I can't wait to watch his tape to see how well he plays, and does he play to the time, speed, and the twitchiness that I saw out on the field. This guy caught the football well at the Combine. Let's see if he's able to go catch the football in actual games. So I can't wait to watch him after this Combine. Another cornerback, the final of the first group that I thought was noteworthy. Iowa's Desmond King did not run his 40, which tells me he's probably going to run slow, and that's fine. 5'10", 201 pounds. Another guy that can go and get the football. I think he's more of a safety probably at the next level. Might be able to put him outside as a cover 3 corner, but I don't think he's a man-to-man guy moving forward. And that's part of the reason I don't think he ran his 40, but maybe he's a slot guy at 5'10". We're seeing less and less 5'10" corners out on the outside and more of these guys getting kicked inside to slot. So we'll see what Desmond King does. I thought he caught the football okay. Again, for another guy that Mike Mayock was gushing about in terms of having hands, he dropped the football quite a bit, so wasn't as impressed with him catching the football as I thought I was going to be. But in any event, I thought he was okay in the drills. Looked a little tight at times, but Desmond King did not run his 40. Want to see what that time is for him. So you go from group 1 of the DBs to group 2, and this to me was far and away the more superior group in terms of ball skills, athleticism, quality of football player. I think this was more dominated, though, by the cornerbacks, whereas group 1, you had more safeties intermingled with those corners. So I think with this group, the reason why it's so athletic and they're so good at catching the football is because these are guys that are going to be cornerbacks at the next level. So that kind of explains the athleticism that's going to be displayed. I'm looking at 4.2s. I'm looking at some 4.3s. I'm looking at some 4.4s in this next group. So that tells you all you need to know in terms of athleticism with this group. We start with Washington's Kevin King, and this draft is just amazing. And I told you on the guide to the 2017 NFL Scouting Combine that this draft is going to have 8 to 12 players that are 6'2" or better in the secondary at the cornerback position. Here's another one of those guys in Kevin King, which is just this. It just floored me to see how athletically gifted that these guys are. 6'3", 200 pounds. This guy runs a faux Moses Malone 40, which is just insane. And to match, his movement skills were outstanding throughout the course of the day. I thought he looked good. He looked fluid. And he was out there paired with another guy that we talked about at the cornerback position out of Washington, and Sidney Jones, and they were probably the two best in terms of tandems at the cornerback position in the league, or in college football, I should say. Last season, there were a couple of big-time tandems. Florida had one, Ohio State had one, but I think, for my money, the Washington tandem was a little bit better, and Kevin King is a big man, and he ran fast, and these are the kinds of guys that are going to be coming into the league and changing the game at the cornerback position. 6'3", 200 pounds, 4'4", 40. That is 4'4", 40, excuse me. Moses Malone, 4'4", 40. For Kevin King, just amazing. And like I said, the movement skills to match. Helped himself tremendously. Cornerback out of Ohio State, the Ohio State University, Marshon Lattimore, big-time prospect, a top 5 potential prospect, top 10 for sure. And he went out, and I think he just cemented his place in this draft as a potential top 5, definite top 10 pick in this draft with that 4.36 40 that he ran at 6 feet, 193, 11-foot broad, 38.5-inch vert. This guy is getting off the board fast, okay? This is one of those limited supply opportunities only. Get it while supplies last, okay? Because he's going to go off the board very quickly. And he went out and he moved, folks. He moved. He caught the football well. Like I said, this group as a whole, they caught the football extremely well. These guys were outstanding catching the football. And Marshon Lattimore, as you saw at Ohio State, catches the football, and when he gets it, he knows what to do with it. And he showcased the speed. This guy's a first-round, top 10, possibly top 5 pick all day long. And I think he secured that status in this draft with his performance in the final day of the Combine. Michigan's Jordan Lewis, 4.55 40, 5'10", 188. He's a slot guy that Mike Mayock says, look, he can help you day one in the slot right away. And he strikes me as a New England Patriot type of football player, a guy that isn't going to wow you with his measurables, not going to wow you with his athleticism, but he's just going to get the job done. And when I saw him out on the field, I thought he moved well. And I think he's a guy that he didn't necessarily help himself with the 4.55 40, but he didn't hurt himself because I don't think people expected him to run all that fast anyway. But I thought he went out, he looked good in the positional drills. And like I said, with the most part from this group, he caught the football well, and that's another big important thing if you're going to play in the secondary. If you want to help yourself catch the football. With the way these offenses are in this day and age, if you get a chance to force a turnover, you got to make it. Because offenses, they're scoring points nowadays. You got to find ways to get them off the field. And if you get an opportunity to create a turnover, you got to take it. And these guys in this second group were doing that. Speaking of this second group, I talked yesterday about Tano Passingnon out of Villanova and how much of a stud he was at 6'7", 289, running a 4.81 40. That's ridiculous in itself. But this guy takes the cake here. And if you remember on my guide to the 2017 NFL Scouting Combine, one of the names to watch I gave you for the cornerback position was Obi Melifonwu. I told you about Obi Melifonwu, and I said, look, if he comes to the Combine and runs the way that a lot of people think he might run, this guy has a chance to be the talk of the Combine, and this guy has a chance to blow it up, much like his counterpart in the secondary did a couple of years ago in Byron Jones, and this guy has a chance to become a cornerback at the next level and be a first-round pick. No one was talking about Obi Melifonwu as a first-round pick before the Combine. I guarantee you his name will be circulating in the back end of the first round now as a potential safety corner hybrid. This guy, you know what's unfair about Obi Melifonwu is that some guys get in the speed line when God lines everyone up and starts blessing everybody with talents and gifts. Some people get in the brains and smarts line. Some people get in the height line. Some people get in the speed line. Some people get in the length line. He got in every single line, which is totally unfair. If you look at his body type, there's not an ounce of fat on this kid. 6'4", 224, 11'9" broad. Let me say that again because I don't know if you understand what I'm saying to you. The second highest broad jump, or longest, I should say, broad jump in Combine history behind his teammate, Byron Jones. 11. We're talking about a 6'4", 224-pound cornerback slash safety. 11'9" broad. Julio Jones. Julio! He jumped 11'3". We know what kind of freak he is. At 6'3", 215 pounds. This guy's 6'4", 224. And he's jumping 11'9" on the broad. Turn around 44-inch vert. And then he had the nerve, the audacity to be upset with a 44-inch vertical. When they told him it was a 44-inch vertical, he said, "Are you kidding me?" What is this world coming to when 6'4", 224-pound behemoths are upset for jumping 44 inches on the vert? Oh my God. You got to be kidding me. And all he did was run a 4.4 flat. That's it. That's all, folks. That's it. Just a 4.4 flat at 6'4", 224. He just ran 4.4 flat. After jumping an 11'9" broad and having a 44-inch vert, he just ran 4.4 flat. That's it. This is ridiculous. This is utterly ridiculous. And he moved well. He caught the football well. With that range, if he's a safety, that's sideline to sideline range. Okay? He can catch the football. He's physical. What more can I say? What more do I need to say? Dion consistently told this man, you need to pack your things and go home now. You're done. After that broad jump, after that vertical, after that 40, you're done. I don't need to see anything from you in the positional drills. Go home. You're finished. Obi Melifonwu. Remember that name. I think he made himself a first-round pick today. I sincerely do. Moving on to Fabian Moreau. Remember, on my guide to the 2017 NFL Combine, I told you 2 names of guys to watch, Melifonwu and Moreau. Both guys that I thought could come and light it up at the Combine. I said, Fabian Moreau is a guy that not a lot of people are talking about, but this guy is really good. I watched a lot of UCLA out because they're on the West Coast. Those games come on late when there's nothing else on, so I got to watch a ton of UCLA football. Unfortunately, they weren't good, and Josh Rosen was hurt for most of the season. So those games didn't turn out to be as good as I thought they were going to be. But I watched a ton of UCLA football, and I was telling you guys, this guy's good, okay? I didn't know he was going to run a 4.35 40, though. I didn't know he's that fast. And so for him to be 6 feet, 206 pounds, which is a really good, thick, sturdy size, to jump 11.4 in the broad and 38 inches on the vert, you're talking about another gifted athlete, physical specimen. And he didn't get the just due at the Combine because the guy that he was running after was Obi Melifonwu, and that's all anybody wanted to talk about. But Fabian Moreau probably quietly had arguably the best day of anybody out there, running a 4.35, jumping the 38-inch vert, the 11.4 broad that he had. I thought he had an outstanding. He moved so fluidly on the field. He caught almost everything. He looked so good all day long. Fabian Moreau is a guy I told you to watch, and for good reason. Another one of these guys, probably not going to be a first-round pick. But if you want this guy in the second round, you better act fast because I don't think he's going to be around for long. And it would not shock me in the least if this guy heard his name called on day 1 of the combine or the draft. Excuse me. It would not shock me. He's that talented, and he showcased it in the final day of the combine. Here's a guy that I knew nothing about. But because of what he did at the Combine, he's on my radar now. Minnesota's Jalen Myrick ran a 4.28 40. Wowzers. Zoinks! Scoob! Dudes are flying, man. It's a different day and age. Cats are flying. Cats are taking off. Like the cars you're hearing in the background, man. These dudes are taking off. And he's a 5'10", 200-pound corner at Minnesota. I know nothing about this guy, but I heard he's got punt return skills, which always helps. With that kind of speed, if he gets a seam, he's gone. So I'm dying to watch tape on this guy. The movement skills were solid. I wasn't that wowed by his movement skills necessarily on throughout the course of the day. They were okay. They weren't great, but he's a guy that with that kind of speed and any kind of return ability, you want to sign up for a guy like that and see if you can't coach him up to be a really good football player because he's got the attributes that you're looking for, and he can run, he can move, and I thought he caught the football. Like I said, just about everybody in this group, second group, caught the football really well. He did as well. This was a guy that jumped off the screen at me throughout the course of the second group as well. Safety out of Michigan State, Monte Nicholson, 4'4", 240. Get this, 6'2", 212. Okay, 4'4", 240. We're talking about a safety here, folks. That's 6'2", 212. And Mike Mayock made it a point of emphasis to re-emphasize over and over again, and he's an in-the-box safety. After seeing that time, hey, Mike, I don't know about that, bruh. Okay, we know that this league is starting to shift over, and the line is starting to become blurred between free and strong safety. Really, you got to be interchangeable and be able to do both. And with a 4'4", 240, now again, just because you run really fast in a straight line doesn't mean that actually translates to you being able to get from the middle of the field or the hash all the way to the outside and cover up a bunch of ground and make a play on the football like the Ohio State safety Malik Hooker can. So it doesn't always translate. Maybe he is an in-the-box safety, and maybe when I do put the tape on, I will see that and identify him as such. But that 40 time speaks otherwise, and so we'll see what happens. I thought he moved well, a little tight in his change of direction sometimes, but again, I was impressed with what I saw from Monte Nicholson, for the most part throughout the course of the day, and he's a big guy running really fast. That always helps. This was one of the guys that I said we needed to watch out for because much like his Florida counterpart a season ago in Vernon Hargraves III, we wanted to see how fast he was going to run, and so the talk of the combine going in at the cornerback position was Teez Tabor, really good corner. How fast is he going to run? And I talked about the Ohio State tandem, talked about the Washington tandem. There was another tandem of Wilson and Tabor in Florida, and we knew Wilson, a much bigger corner than Tabor, wasn't going to run extremely fast, but we thought he was going to run in the 4.5s, and he did, and we'll get to him a little bit later on. But Tabor, there were question marks. We didn't know what he was going to run. How did he answer them? And it seemed like everyone that we had questions about answered them emphatically this weekend. That wasn't the case for Teez Tabor. He runs a 4.63 40, which is really disappointing. You know, along with Cooper Kupp, another guy that we wanted to see how fast he ran at the receiver position. Those were probably two of the more disappointing times of the weekend. And Cooper Kupp's 4.63, I think he ran like a 4.63 as well. And Teez Tabor's 4.63 was just god awful. But he's got a chance. This is why you run at the combine. Got a chance to clean it up at your pro day, but he's still a good football player. And again, I told you sometimes we make too much of these 40 times. I told you Josh Norman ran in the 4.6s. Dick Sherman ran in the 4.6s. Don't allow the 40 time to cloud your judgment on some of these players. If they're a good football player, their talents will still shine through. And Teez Tabor is a talented football player. Well, I will tell you this, though. I don't know if the 40 time affected him on the drills on the field, but I didn't think his footwork was all that clean. I didn't think his movement skills were all that clean. And some turn and run and redirection drills, I thought he was off balance and he was flying around a little bit. So I wasn't all that impressed with Teez Tabor, a little disappointed in his overall day. He did catch the football well. Like I said, this second group caught it well, but I thought Teez Tabor didn't have the greatest of days in the final day of the combine. But again, the tape doesn't lie, and he still got his pro day to go up and clean up any questions that some of these scouts may have about his game. Cornerback out of LSU, Tre'Davious White, 4.47 40 at 5'11", 192. Solid time for him to go out and run sub 4.5, be physical like he is. I think he's a guy that helped himself a little bit, caught the football extremely well. And I think it was a solid day for a guy that played at a big-time school that went up against some big-time talent. Tre'Davious White, I think he helped himself with his overall performance at the Combine. You go to the safety position again, Utah's Marcus Williams, 4.57 40, 6'1", 202. And look, this is impressive. 43.5-inch vert, running a 4.57, 6'1", 202 pounds. He doesn't get the just due he deserves because you see a Melifonwu You see a Fabian Monroe, a Jalen Myrick, a Dante Nicholson, who's also a safety that's running a 4.42, and it kind of diminishes what a Marcus Williams went out and did today. But I thought he was just as cool as the other side of the pillow in his movement skills all day long. I thought he was just silky and velvety smooth. I thought he caught it well. I thought he moved well. And at 4.57 at 43-inch vert at 6'1", 202, I think this guy's a football player, man. And so I like Marcus Williams. I want to see more, and I can't wait to watch the tape because, again, like Monte Nicholson, big guy that can move. I want to see what he does on tape. But I walked away from the combine impressed with Utah's Marcus Williams. Florida's Quincy Wilson. Talked about him as a big-time cornerback prospect, one of the big-time names in this draft. 6'1", 211, great size there. 4.5, 4.40 is right around what people thought he would run. And I thought he looked exceptional. His movement skills, I thought he looked good all day moving. I think he's going to be one of the first corners to come off the board. After the Marshawn Lattimore's of the world, I think Quincy Wilson will hear his name. And I think he's a first-round pick. And I don't think he did anything to dissuade me in thinking that this guy's one of the top corners in this draft. He went out, moved well, caught it well. Would have loved to have seen him run faster. But if you watch him, this is right around what you thought he was going to run. So I didn't come in with these overblown expectations and I was let down. I think he did what I expected him to do, and he checked off all the boxes. I look at Quincy Wilson as a first-round pick all day, every day, especially with that size. And then, speaking of size, corner out of Colorado, Akilo Witherspoon just is a long corner. This guy's got length for days, 33-inch arms, 6'3", 198. So you're essentially saying this guy's 6'3", 200 pounds, and it looks like it's all legs and arms. And 4.4, 5.40 is ridiculous for a guy that big. And like I told you, in a draft where Kevin King, 6'3", 200 pounds, running a 4.44, you got Quincy Wilson at 6'1", 211, running a 4.5, 4.40, and Kilo Witherspoon, 6'3", 198, running a 4.45. Obi Melanwanfu, Obi Melanwanfu, running a sub 4.4 flat at 6'4", 224. It's a ridiculous group of guys that are athletes. Add Witherspoon to that mix at 6'3", 198. This guy, he looked good all day, man. Back pedal was smooth, in and out of breaks, caught the football well. He was just under control all day. He never looked like he was in a hurry. He's one of, like I said, when I say smooth, that's what I mean. I mean, everything just looks effortless. It doesn't look like you're pressing. Some of these guys look like they're trying their hardest. When they're running, face looks like it's about to explode. And when they're doing these drills, they're concentrating really hard, thinking about it. He was just effortless out there, carefree. Nothing seemed to faze him. He looks the part. Now, Mike Mayock said he doesn't tackle. I'm going to check him out on tape and see if that is, in fact, correct. But his size lends itself to believe that he doesn't tackle. He looks extremely thin. But at 6'3", 200 pounds, if the guy can play the position, sign me up. And Mike Mayock has already given his stamp of approval and said that this guy can play the position. So if Mike says it, that's good enough for me. I can't wait to watch him. And finally, Clemson corner, Cordrea Tankersley, 6'1", 200-pound corner out of Clemson, 4.4 flat. So you're talking about another guy that can pick him up, put him down, that has some size. I'm not a Cordrea Tankersley fan. I watched a ton of him last year with all the guys that came out of Clemson. There were a ton of them, whether it was T.J. Green at the safety position or the other safety that the Vikings took in the 7th round, or it was the cornerback that came off the board in the 2nd round. There were so many Clemson secondary guys that I ran into Cordrea Tankersley enough, and I can tell you right now, he's too grabby for my liking. Just a bunch of grabbing, panics with the ball in the air. I really am not a huge Cordrea Tankersley fan, but again, I'm going to watch him and see what he did in 2016 to see if anything changed. But you know how I am. I'm a pet peeve of mine is guys panicking with the ball in the air, and he seems to do that quite a bit. But in any event, he moved well throughout the course of the day, caught it well. So much like everybody in Group 2, the overall day itself was just fascinating. So many athletes, so many different sizes, so many big guys that can run, safety, corner. I was just blown away. This is amazing. This group of defensive backs just flat out. I've never seen anything like it, ever in my life, seen anything like this. This was extraordinary. And like I told you, safety, corner, edge rusher, tight end, those are the positions that just absolutely blew me away. Coming into the combine, they did not disappoint. Every single one of those positions held their own. And I'm looking forward to seeing where these guys are going to end up, what they do with their pro days, if they're looking to improve anything. And I can't wait for the draft because it's going to be fascinating. If your team has a ton of picks in this draft, you're one lucky son of a gun because your team is going to rack up. If you need defensive help, if you're looking – and look, I agree with Daniel Jeremiah. DJ said, look, man, if you've got a need at tight end, if you've got a need at safety, corner, edge rusher, this is the draft. Double up. Don't be satisfied with one of these guys. Get 2, get 3. This is deep. Don't do this. And we hear this every year. Oh, it's such a deep draft that I can pass on this position and get one later. No. Take 3 of them. Don't take one later. Take 3. Take one in the first round. Take another one in the third round. Take another one in the fourth round. Don't be modest here because there's so many. Oh, I'll share with everybody. No, be greedy. Get 2. Get 3 of these boys, man. These are the types of guys. Because look, these are the types of dudes that when it comes contract time, you're going to have to pay them. You can't pay everybody. So take 2 of them, even if both of them ends up good and one of them has to go. Like the Rams ended up in that situation when they had to let Janoris Jenkins test the market because they had 2 of them that were good at the same time because they took them in the same draft. Hey, put yourself in a position that even if you lose one, you still got another one. This is the type of draft where you could draft 2. You could revamp your entire defense in one draft. Edge rusher and corner and safety, that's how you stop the pass in this league. Pressure on the quarterback and guys that can cover in the back end. You can remake your defense in the 2017 NFL draft because of all of the guys that I just named and some of the guys that performed yesterday in day 3 of the combine. This is a big-time draft for the defensive side of the football. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this thing unfold over the next 2.5 months. That is for certain. But that's going to do it for my combine coverage. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed watching and breaking it down for you. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie Tee Network here in the Lab Room. I thank you for joining me throughout the process. Remember, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Louie Tee Network on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at In the Lab Room on Twitter. That's my Twitter handle at In the Lab Room. I'm also on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. Find me there and like the page. And also, I'm on IG. It's ITZ. It's me, Louie T, on Instagram. Go ahead and give me a follow there as well. For everybody out there watching, I'm your man Louie Tee, signing off, saying thank you for watching. And remember, we're changing the game one live feed at a time. Have a good one. Remember, Draft Prospects 101 series gets underway tomorrow. I'll see you then. Have a good one.